I've always found it very interesting where you can suddenly cut to the rear of a prostitute shortly right after, well, I'm just showing you guys what you may already know in the B-roll footage, that right there being a recruit at Parris Island, South Carolina, eliminating his senior drill instructor. But then again, though, at the same time, though, this right here is the director that gave us quite literally the first great cutscene in film history. Welcome back, guys. This right here is the second part of my Full Metal Jacket series, where this particular video right here is going to be focusing on the Vietnam section of the film. Also, something else too, I want you to kind of think of this as a spiritual sequel to the very, very first video that I did on my main channel, the John Claymore channel, where I actually talked about the actual meaning of the film. Now, some of that's going to be coming up over the course of this video here. So yes, you're obviously going to pick up on some of the things that you may have seen in that video. If you did not see that video, I will link it in the description box, as well as part 1 of the series, which of course focuses on the boot camp section. And of course, there will be a part 3 to this series, which will be focusing on the Animal Mother Pyle pipeline. So make sure you guys stick around for that there. Now, before we fully dig into this video here, make sure you guys please hit that like button. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Also share the video, and of course also I'm going to want to get you guys thoughts on not only the video essay but the film itself. And with that right there out of the way, let us go ahead and dive in. Now guys, one more thing before we fully dig into here and get some. This video is going to be focusing a lot on what I focused on in the original video that I did on this particular film. However, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into the themes of what the men actually see on a daily basis, what they deal with, and of course, the paranoia that you have to deal with on a daily basis when deployed to a country like, say, Vietnam during that war in particular, especially that war, given everything that we know today. Now, let's get some. This video right here is not going to be a basic B2B plot breakdown. Just going to go ahead and give you guys that right there. If you want film explanations and actual plots to the video itself, I've always suggested that you guys just go watch the movie itself. If anything, I'm just picking apart from pieces of the plot, and of course I also use the plot to kind of drive the video. So it's not going to be a full-blown plot breakdown, but just bits and pieces from the plot that we're going to be commenting on. So now let's go ahead and get started. So we pick up with Joker a couple of years later, now a sergeant and a combat correspondent for Stars and Stripes, a newspaper. He's frustrated with the fact that he's writing fluff pieces to help keep the troops' morale up at Da Nang. And of course, you guys see right here in the B-roll footage, eventually the Tet ceasefire is broken, and he is eventually sent out to go gather intel from the front. That right there, of course, being Hue City. However, before we fully talk about that there, we got to talk about this scene itself. Now, guys, I talked a lot in the original video that I did on this video about this particular sequence, and also the music that was being used in the background in the tent, and also a lot of Joker's false bravado. Now, we'll be talking about that periodically over the course of this video, and also the facial expressions itself. But you get this sense that when he is ultimately sent to Hue, you get this sense that he's not exactly liked by Lieutenant Lockhart. And of course, if you've seen the film, then you know how Joker is. We'll be coming back to that sequence, so just giving you guys a heads up. While in the helicopter on the way to Hue, he and Rafterman both, they come in contact with this devil dog right here who just seems to be mowing down innocent civilians. Eventually they get to Hue, if you guys know the plot, and eventually they come across a mass grave. And of course they find out that this mass grave, that these people had been killed after they had been ordered to come back for re-education. Obviously killed for political purposes, meaning that they were political dissidents, and the NVA felt no use that they needed to keep these people around.
They count, sir.
We think it's 20.
Do you know how it happened, sir?
Well, it seems the NVA came in with a list of gook names. Government officials, policemen, Harvard officers, school teachers. They went around their houses real polite and asked them to report the next day for political re-education. Everybody turned up got shot. Some they buried alive. Right?
I talked about this right here a lot in the video on the message of the film and how it was really about the contradictions and chaotic nature of war itself. And you guys can obviously see the contradiction. You see a U.S. Marine committing what could be obviously a war crime, and then you come right back and you see the NVA committing war crimes themselves. I'll explain the differences between the two a little bit later in the video, but let me go ahead and get back on track. Now, many people look at this sequence here with the Colonel and they think to themselves, duality of man. all that type of stuff there, and it does have something to do with it. However, the thing about this scene right here and the contrast is, as what was said on the DVD commentary by Dorian Harewood, who plays the role of 8 Ball, that this right here was actually Stanley Kubrick's answer to Rambo. The point is that this right here is what war is really and truly about. The real, okay? It's absurd, it's chaotic, it's crazy. That right there is the real truth about war. And of course, from here, they eventually move on to meet the Lust Hog Squad, where Joker reunites with Cowboy. And of course we meet Animal Mother. But it's not Animal Mother that I want to talk about here, it's Crazy Earl.
These people we wasted here today are the finest human beings we will ever know.
When you see a Marine who's, how do I say, kind of, I don't know how you put this, he keeps a dead NVA soldier around with him, dead VC, whichever one it might be. And you automatically think to yourself, by the way he is talking, that this guy is completely and totally batshit crazy. He's lost his mind, he's lost his marbles. I wouldn't be so sure I would go in that direction. Eventually, the squad goes back into play, and of course, this right here is them trying to retake the positions that they may have lost the night before. And of course, the lieutenant is killed. Who's the first person that steps up? Crazy Earl.
Okay, Lust Hog Squad, listen up! We're gonna move up these 2 roads here and check them.
Who leads the men into this sector of town? It's Crazy Earl. I'm not trying to play him up or anything, but what I'm trying to get across is that these men have very, very tough exteriors. They're hard. They're born again hard, as you might would say. However, you see over the course of the film that they're actually pretty daggone good human beings. We got to ask ourselves a question: do these men eventually lose themselves? Do they lose their core selves? Do they lose their souls? That right there, of course, will be coming up over the course of this video right here as well. But the point is this right here. Kubrick was trying to get across that it's not as simple as you might would think. And the chaotic nature, of course. Now, speaking of that chaotic nature, what you guys are seeing right here in the B-roll footage is you're seeing these Marines going into play. However, if you remember this scene right here where Earl shoots one of these NVA soldiers and eventually runs out of ammo, you think about this song playing in the background.
Oh, well, everybody's heard about the bird. The bird's a winner. Well, the bird.
I absolutely fucking hate Family Guy, but I couldn't resist. The bird is the word. Now, guys, really quick. The first video that I did on this particular, and I know I'm talking about that first video a lot, but the thing is this right here. I talked a lot about the sequence in the tent and the usage of the song Going to the Chapel by the Dixie Cups, the Chapel of Love. And of course, when you think about that song, you think about this very, very cheerful song playing in the background while men are talking about killing their fellow man. And of course, the base eventually gets bombed, eventually gets shelled. The point is this right here. Kubrick was trying to convey over to the audience that war is in fact very, very much a chaotic ordeal. And also, in a lot of ways, extremely unusual. For example, the coping mechanisms that are used to cope with what you are dealing with on a daily basis. For example, take the scene where the Devil Dogs are standing over 2 dead bodies, 2 dead fellow comrades, one of them, of course, being the lieutenant. We hear Semper Fi, Go Easy Bros, and then, of course, you hear Animal Mother say this.
Better you than me.
The point is this right here. The men have to cope with what they are going through. It's an insane world. Much, much worse, especially given all the paranoia that these men are about to deal with or have been dealing with, which is what we're going to be talking about next. If you've ever sat down and talked to Vietnam veterans, and by God, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of videos of Vietnam veterans sharing their stories here on YouTube, you will see that one of the things that they had to deal with most was paranoia. And here's what I mean by paranoia. You're talking about the possibility of people who are supposed to be on your own side potentially betraying you in favor of the other side. That right there being the side that, of course, is being ran by the quote-unquote commies. The NVA, of course, I could use a lot of different slurs to describe the VC, but I can't do that because YouTube will find a way to say that this video is harmful or it's harassment or etc., etc., etc. Now, there is one more thing that I want to say before we fully dig into the whole paranoia section, and that right there is I want to talk about the interviews themselves, the interview section where the men sort of share their thoughts on the situation. Now, I can't play all of this, but you hear such responses such as, Animal Mother saying that we're here, we might as well win it. You also hear Cowboy talk about the fact that there are no horses in Vietnam. He does not like that. He also, of course, talked about what I'm about to mention here in a second, but you also hear someone like, say, 8-Ball talk about how it is that they pretty much gave our freedom away and they're trying to give it away to the bleep, who, of course, is also finding ways to betray us every chance they get. Doc J, of course, he decides he wants to mock LBJ, and, of course, not only mocking LBJ, but then you get this response from Crazy Earl.
No, I belong in Vietnam. I'll tell you that.
Which, at the end of the day, is what it's really and truly about, doing the right thing. Or if you feel like you belong there, then quite frankly, you belong there. Not really much of an answer there, but what I will say is that I think that this particular scene here showcases that the diversity of responses, the diversity of language that these men use to Stars and Stripes, even though Stars and Stripes is designed to boost the morale of the men, which is something that Joker was upset about at the very beginning of this section. It shows us that these men are not entirely brainwashed. And I can tell you right now, as a Marine myself, that the minute I got home from boot camp, that right there is when the whole boot camp stuff began to start washing off. It takes not that long, but of course, some men adjust a little bit faster than others, or readjust a little bit faster than others. I just figured I'd point that out before you go any further. You've got Cowboy talking about how it is that he's got some pretty bad boys coming in, and of course, he's a little bit more concerned about the new men that they are getting. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because I wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of bring it back to the door gunner scene. Now, the door gunner scene, you've got this guy who is committing what would, quite frankly, be deemed to be war crimes, just shooting innocent civilians. But think about what it was that he said when he was asked by Joker, how could you shoot women and children?
Anyone who runs is a VC. Anyone who stands still is a well-disciplined VC. Any women or children? Sometimes. How can you shoot women and children? Easy. You just don't lead them so much. Ain't war hell?
That sounds pretty disgusting when you think about it. Easy. You just don't lead them too much. However, it's that bit at the end that he says, ain't war hell. Well, think about something really quick. You don't know who the VC is. You don't know who's actually really and truly on your side. It's something that I had a conversation with a friend of mine who passed away, a guy that I spoke to as a Vietnam vet. He said he felt that the Vietnam veterans' war was not that different from what we dealt with in Iraq and Afghanistan. Typically, when it came to the topic of Korea, World War I, World War II, you were facing uniformed opponents, and to a certain extent during the first Gulf War, and also during Vietnam. However, during Vietnam, you also had the VC. The VC, of course, you can't tell if they're on your side or not. Several films have depicted this, but I advise you guys to go check out the stories from Vietnam veterans themselves. I think that they do the best job of explaining things, but the point is this right here. You can't always tell your enemy from friend, especially in that type of conflict. Even the prostitute scene kind of signals the level of paranoia, because most people think about me, love you, long time, and all that stuff, but they forget this line here.
You know, half these goo choirs are serving officers in the Viet Cong. The other half have got cheap.
Now, gang, there is definitely a lot more to draw from that, but I figured I would throw that little bit in before we move forward. We'll be talking more about that in depth in part 3 when we talk about the Animal Mother Pyle pipeline. Trust me, you will see in that video how it all makes sense, but let's keep going. So, while the actions of the door gunner are completely and totally unjustifiable and wrong, he's not wrong when he says, ain't war hell. You also then see that once again at the mass grave. This right here was Kubrick's way of pointing out that there really and truly are not, you could say that it's either him saying that there are no real true good guys or bad guys, or you could also take away from this that Kubrick once again is pointing out what I said in my original video about this. War is full of contradictions. It's full of chaos. It is, quite frankly, full of paranoia, which would be a justifiable feeling for these men to have given their circumstances. Also, to go on top of this is where it comes back to coping. I want to go ahead and get this part out of the way before we go any further, before we get to the end. Joker's facial expressions, everything about Joker is simply coping. Even back to the beginning of the film with the whole, is this you, John Wayne? He's coping with his current scenario. He is, as what Payback called out in the tent. He's, for the most part, a bunch of bluster. He's not really and truly that tough of a guy. He even admits so himself when the shit begins to hit the fan.
Hey, I hope they're just fucking with us. I ain't ready for this shit.
So just know that when you hear Joker say, I wanted to be the first kid on my block to get a confirmed kill, just know that this right here is once again another coping mechanism for somebody who, quite frankly, is a bit of a smartass. Even though he's a likable and lovable one, the truth is this right here. This entire sequence, this entire film, if you think about it with his facial expressions, this right here is just him coping. Now, I will be coming back to Joker a little bit later on in this video, especially towards the end, which we're getting close to here in a second. But I want to take a bit of a detour and talk about the end itself and exactly what happens at the end. So let's go ahead and get to that.
Where we go, little girls like that get killed.
That would be absolutely correct, Phil. Now, the reasons why it is that Full Metal Jacket has such a high rewatchability factor is, well, the boot camp sequence. And many critics felt that the minute that the boot camp sequence ended, that the film suddenly got weaker. I disagree 100%. Now, when I was younger, before I joined the Marines, I would have agreed with that sentiment 100%, wholeheartedly. However, after being deployed a couple of times, after being involved in Operation Phantom Fury as a tanker, after seeing combat, I gotta tell you right now, Full Metal Jacket, it stands up pretty good to a lot of other films, especially other Vietnam films, because of course when you think about Vietnam, you think about jungles, you think about the green, you think about the atmosphere of it being like a jungle, but of course, not every battle in Vietnam was fought in the jungle. Case in point, Way City, Vietnam. Now, I'm not going to be giving you guys a full-fledged breakdown of that battle, but what I will say is this here. Given the fact that this entire film was filmed in England and Stanley actually flew palm trees in and they used an old abandoned gasworks, and, well, like I said, it was completely filmed in England with the exception of one scene that there'd be the Paris Island graduation sequence, which only lasts about 3 seconds. They did one hell of a job at making this film look very good, and they made the combat look, quite frankly, a lot more realistic than one might would think, which we'll get to here in a second. But let me go ahead and get back on track. So if you guys remember how this film goes, spoiler alert, then you will probably remember that the film, you had this patrol sequence in Hue. Crazy Earl is killed. Eventually, Cowboy takes charge of the squad. They move to another position. 8-Ball volunteers to go in, and of course he goes in and he is cut down by a sniper. Cowboy, feeling an ambush, does not want anybody else going forward, and of course Doc J, being the beautiful human being that he is, he chooses to go out there to rescue 8-Ball, only to sadly be cut down. Now guys, really quick, I know I've not spoken much about Animal Mother, and he's kind of like the main guy outside of Joker and Cowboy, at least as far as I'm concerned, in the second half of the film. But like I said before, there will be another video strictly on his character and of course the Gomer Pyle pipeline, which we will get to in video number 3. So I promise, if you think I've slighted Animal Mother, trust me, he will get his due in the next video. But Animal Mother shows you that he is in fact what 8-Ball said earlier. He is absolutely a beautiful human being. You just need to throw grenades at him.
Fuck you, Cowboy! Fuck all you assholes!
Mother suppresses fire, squad eventually moves up, and of course if you guys know the plot, then you know that Cowboy is shot by a sniper. Now, this was a very quick breakdown of what happens, and like I said, I could go through detail by detail, but what I'm going to say is this right here. Given my experience with a little bit of urban combat, and by the way, I was a tanker, and actually seeing it, it actually looks a lot like what Fallujah looked like. If you see the photos of Operation Phantom Fury, you'll see a lot of purple, you'll see a lot of darkness, or it looks a little bit dark, like the sun's kind of setting down a little bit. But that purple is something that I always remember. I had never seen purple sky before in my life until that, well, I guess you say that couple of weeks. But Mother, of course, he wants revenge, which is absolutely 100% natural, which we'll be bringing up again here in a second. And of course, the squad, they go for it. Pop smoke, try to screen their movements, which by the way is a realistic move. And eventually they get into the building that the sniper is in. Now, I'm pausing, not giving any commentary right now for a reason, because I want you guys to kind of like let the environment kind of sink in a little bit. And of course, Joker does in fact get up on the sniper, but
it is the hard heart that kills. If your killer instincts are not clean and strong, you will hesitate at the moment of truth. You will not kill. You will become dead Marines. And then you will be in a world of shit. Because Marines are not allowed to die without permission.
He freezes and the sniper is ultimately cut down by Rafterman. Now guys, a lot of people love to make out like this particular scene was just anticlimactic. I disagree with that 100%. Now let me kind of go back to the whole realism of combat for a second. This girl is probably only maybe 14, 15 years old. This was not exactly uncommon for kids to be soldiers, especially teenagers. And of course, the VC and NBA employed them. This young girl is holding up a squad of Marines, and from a squad of Marines, you're holding up a platoon, a company, a battalion, could be so on, so on, so on. This is basically a one-way ticket for this girl. She knows that she is going to die, and ultimately she is cut down. And after some back and forth between Joker and Animal Mother, and of course Animal Mother wants this girl to, well, I'll put it this way here, he wasn't exactly a fan of finishing the girl off like Joker wanted to, but letting the girl suffer, leaving her there, is honestly kind of understandable given the fact that this girl has killed 3 of his comrades. Even though him and Cowboy may not have liked each other, yeah, he's still a comrade. A lot of people love to look at the end of this film and they love to overanalyze it, and they wonder if maybe it's possible that Joker fully went into his dark side here. Now, I talked about Joker basically, this film basically being about him coping about his situation. However, I did mention this earlier, so let's go ahead and talk about this right at the end of the video. So, do these men lose their souls? The first video I did on this, where of course I'm kind of harkening back to, I talked about this in that video as well, and I come to the conclusion that no, these men do not lose their souls. You're going to see an extension of this when we get to the video on Animal Mother and Gomer Pyle, but the thing is this right here. Joker, and a lot of people love to point to this particular scene, especially given the fact that Joker's face is half of it's dark, the other half of it's seen, and you're probably thinking he's struggling between the dark side and the light, and also not to mention the fact that he's probably pulling the trigger with his right hand, that rather being, of course, that he's holding his 1911, his 45 to finish the girl off. A lot of people are thinking that this was the dark side of Joker winning out, but I argue that that right there is not the case, as I'll explain right here in a second. If there's anybody's face that you want to look at, though, I would suggest you look at Rafterman's, because if anybody looks like they've been tuned up over this, it's definitely Rafterman. I mean, he kind of showcases this in his reaction after getting the kill. But throughout all the smart-ass remarks, the snarkiness, the sarcasm, I would argue that Joker is, in fact, very, very much a good human being deep down inside. I mean, why else would he be having these... I mean, seriously, why else would he be having these facial expressions? Why else would he think that the door gunner killing innocents be kind of sick? Even though he didn't do anything to stop it, which of course he probably couldn't anyways. Still, though, at the same time, though, I mean, if anything, you see the human element of Joker still working here. He chose to finish this girl off, who, by the way, given the fact that she took a lot of bullets to the torso, chances are one of them probably got to her along, maybe a couple went right through it. She's going to struggle. So it would probably be better to finish the girl off. But that right there still does not answer the question of whether he lost his soul here or the men themselves have lost their soul. Well, I think that Kubrick, in a way, kind of tells us that these men's souls, or at least their childhood selves, are still very, very much intact. Pay very close attention, not just to the monologue at the end of Joker's commentary, which I'll talk about here in a second to close out the video, but just listen to the song over my voice. They're singing the Mickey Mouse Club song. They are singing a child's song. Walking through the night, it's dark, you got some fire kind of guiding you through there, singing a child's song. It tells me that the men's childhood selves are in fact still intact. And there's also this line right here from Joker.
My thoughts drift back to erect nipple wet dreams about Mary Jane Rottencrotch and the great homecoming fuck fantasy. I am so happy that I am alive, in one piece and short. I'm in a world of shit, yes, but I am alive, and I am not afraid.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. It seems to me that no, these men's souls have not been taken. These men have not lost themselves, but in fact, the original core they have has just simply been hardened. They're no longer afraid. Now, guys, with that right there being said, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. The next part will be on the Animal Mother Gomer Pyle pipeline, that theory that Pyle never really died. He just got swapped out with another character. We'll be talking about that in video number 3. This video right here is set to be released either the first Sunday of the month of July or it may be the second. I'll give you guys a video to update you in case something happens. Still, though, please tell me what you guys think about the film, the characters, the video itself. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that. Even if you thought the video sucked, please say something. If you guys can, please hit the like button. If you can, please also subscribe. Consider subscribing. Also share the video. And like I said before, please leave a comment and give me some thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.